Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
So you know how a few weeks ago we were looking into the slave trade?
Yeah.
And we learned there was a ship called the Henriqueta, a Brazilian slave trader. And Henriqueta or something. I don't know how to do Portuguese.
I don't even know what it sounds like, so.
It sounds a lot like Spanish.
Okay.
Anyways, it was captured by the British and renamed the HMS Black Joke, and it became a slave ship hunter. I don't know what you would call it. A patrol ship, anyways. Yeah. To stop Brazilian slave ships, basically. And I thought the name was really cool, like Black Joke. It's like, it was a slave ship and now it's a slave hunter. Black Joke, it's kind of like double meaning or whatever.
Yeah.
So it turns out if you like something being cool, don't look it up, because I wanted to look up more into the ship.
Yeah.
So it's named after a song.
Oh.
It's not named after a
Of course it is.
After a like just a really clever name.
Yeah.
And the song, so you know how we have it tends to be conservatives, but it's all types. Nowadays, and especially in like the 80s, but it seems to be starting up again, where they talk about traditional values and like you have to, this is a disgrace, what is this, is like society is falling apart, we're going downhill, this sort of. So that song that came out, I think it was this year, called WAP or something, and everyone was up in arms about that?
Yes.
Black Joke, the song, imagine that, but worse.
Really?
Yeah. Like quite a bit worse, I think. I haven't really paid attention to the lyrics of either that much, but this is a song that was written in the 1700s.
Written by sailors?
Probably. It's an Irish tavern song, I think. But if society has been decaying, it's been doing it for a very long time. Because then look at Shakespeare.
Yeah.
That's 1500s. That's 500 years ago. And then what was the first oldest joke they could find was like a Sumerian fart joke or something.
Society hasn't been decaying, it's always been the dregs. We've only ever crawled upwards to fall back down. It's like society's a greased bucket, and we like make our ways up the side a little bit and then slide back down.
I just think that I don't even think it's that. I think it's like we've never been as high and mighty as we wanted.
Wasn't there the 20s?
I don't know what the 20s was like.
And the 10s?
Yeah, I don't know what those were like.
The respectable haircut and the dangerous book for boys, that sort of...
Well, that was more the 50s.
Oh, was that the 50s?
Yeah.
Was that after World War I?
World War II.
World War II, right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that, but that's kind of like the Victorian era. Like, everyone was uptight, and like it's like modern day Japan. Like
they're all insane.
You go to Japan, and they're this very uptight society, and they did stuff like, do you know why? Okay, I could be wrong on this, but I'm just going to say it anyways,
right.
and like totally ruin my credibility as an expert in Japanese culture,
right?
Which people thought I was.
Of course.
So do you know why? Wait, what am I even saying here? I don't know if I want to go into this.
Well, it could go back to the slave trade.
Yes. Let's not talk about schoolgirl outfits.
Right. Pitt the Younger's assistant.
Yeah.
So his memorial, or there's a museum which talks about his assistant.
Yeah.
And a plaque's being added to it, saying that he didn't do enough and didn't act soon enough to help stop this slave trade, and is basically accusing his assistant of being racist.
Wow. Did Pitt do that?
I don't know. But it's basically saying like he didn't do enough to end it soon enough. He delayed or something.
Wow. What a way to be disrespectful at a funeral, eh? Just like, wham!
Well, this is like not as I meant memorial by the older memorial, like a remembrance thing. Not
right. Right, but he has like a plaque in dedication of his memory, right?
Yeah. And
it's just like mean. Like that's not very nice.
Yeah, this was done like a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Like imagine if someone bought you a park bench and they're like, he's a moron.
Well, no, so the thing how basically Gone with the Wind. now has attached to it at the beginning, like, this is not the views we hold anymore. And
Yeah.
so it's basically like they're adding addendums.
Right.
And so an addendum was added to...
But why him?
I don't know.
Like, why not... Okay, if he's to blame for not acting soon enough, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that's a reasonable assumption to make.
Mm-hmm.
Then surely everyone before Pitt should get this added to their memorial.
This is his assistant.
Right. But okay, so here's the... I talked about this before. Dishwasher, right?
Yeah.
Full of clean dishes.
Mm-hmm.
So you go and... No. Let's do it opposite so it's even more. There's a bunch of dishes on the counter.
Yeah.
Dishwasher's empty. So... No, you go to the sink, you put your dishes on the sink, you leave. Nobody says anything. You're like, okay, fine. You go to the sink, you put your dishes in, you grab like 2 other dishes, you put them in, you leave. And people will be like, hey, why didn't you fill up the dishwasher?
Yeah.
So this guy, by virtue of being attached to Pitt and doing nothing different from everyone else on Earth, is now to blame for slavery entirely. Like, poor guy.
Yeah, it's... the person who was saying it was the same guy who had the videos, the Britisher, was reporting on this.
You know what?
And he was basically saying, it's like, are they trying to ruin British heroes?
You know what? Himmler, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was tasked with being in charge of the concentration camps.
Yeah.
He didn't kill all the Jews under Hitler's rule. He should get a little plaque attached that said he did the right thing.
No.
Because he failed.
You know, when I hit like 1,000 subscribers, I was going to attach this to my other channel. I'm not sure I want to.
You brought it up. Well, you didn't bring that part up.
No.
Yeah. I just feel bad for Pitt's... Like, was Pitt's assistant actively sabotaging him?
No, it was he didn't act soon enough is the accusation.
Wow.
It's like he didn't try to end it soon enough. That's what I was saying, because there was delays because they're fighting the war with France.
So he didn't do it soon enough.
Yes.
So, literally, what I said about Himmler, good job, you weren't fast enough. You were ineffective in your systematic elimination of a people. You're a hero. Let's put a little plaque there.
No.
Like, imagine you buy someone a park bench, right? And you just put on them, like, this guy's a bit of a jerk.
Oh, there's
a bit of an idiot.
A bit of a lighter note. There's this guy who... There's a bunch of park benches, I think, in Ottawa that don't have any plaques or anything. They're just park bench. And so this mad person, they don't know who it was, but he made a bunch of plaques commemorating things that happened and like putting them on park bench. But they're all humorous. So it's like, this bench commemorates the launch of Squirrel Corp's rocket as Chippy the squirrel went into space. And they're like professionally engraved gold medal plaques that he's like affixed to benches and like different things and like trees. And then the state's like, okay, we're going to get rid of these. They aren't official. And so they're like removing them. And then a bunch of people said, hey, no, keep them. And so they became official plaques and all these things. So there's a bunch of imaginary things that some guy just went around putting up because he got bored.
That's fun. Mm-hmm. Back to away from the fun stuff. Back to the bad stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of bridges people jump off of, commit suicide, right?
Okay.
Right. So anyone that is walking by when they jump off, that doesn't jump after them to try to save them, they should be charged with at least manslaughter, possibly murder. All right. So if you are walking along the shoreline, right, you can't swim, and there is someone, or you're just taking some beginner lessons, there's someone sweeping by in the river, and if you don't go in after them, you drown them.
Is this still on the youngest assistant?
Yes.
I can't even remember the poor guy's name.
I don't want to remember that horrible man's name. He's responsible for all slavery, Connor. He deserves to be forgotten by history. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like... So, either somewhere along the line, the information you are relaying to me is wrong.
Yeah.
Or slightly just like, you know, it got tweaked a tiny bit here, tweaked a bit here.
Well, no, I checked it again several times to make sure.
Like down the line, right? Yeah. But to the point where by the time it hits my ears, I'm imagining it wrong, right?
Yeah.
Or this is just impossibly stupid and cruel. Of who did this?
So the museum that had a bunch of commemorations of people from around that time, basically wanted to say, hey, they hedged their bets or fences. So they like put a bunch of extra little informational things on all the things in the museum, saying like this ship was a whatever. This guy owned slaves. This person didn't do enough. Like they basically did that to a bunch of different things in the building.
Yuri Gagarin, the man who never set foot on the moon.
Basically,
he was a failure in space travel.
Basically.
Jeez.
So,
like, maybe
like there's one other guy I can't remember, but they also put something on him, like adding a note about something that he didn't do good enough on as well. Who was like a part of Pitt the Younger's cabal.
Like,
well, I don't. Cabal sounds evil, but I mean like his group of following.
Like, you know those I can't think of an exact, but you know, like there's a lot. I think there's a lot of biblical stories like this even, where it's like, hey, do this, no. Hey, do this, no. Please do this, very well, and that person's a hero, right?
Yeah.
Even if his assistant was like, hey, okay, we just need you to sign this and then we're done, and he's like, I kind of like slavery, and like he eventually did it. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's a good person for like delaying it, but surely he had some role in ending slavery.
Yeah.
Or he had no role in ending slavery. It was all Pitt and Pitt's super group of elites, whatever that was called. And this guy should just be ignored. Like, here are the heroes. Here's everyone else. The assistant is just...
So he did push for it. It's basically saying he didn't push for it soon enough, though, because they're at war with France. That's what I was saying. Like, he didn't push for it soon enough. He delayed because they were at war with France and they were trying to figure out a rigmarole.
So the museum owners are omniscient because they know the perfect time to do things. So we should go to them, right? Like I want to, when should I start typing again with my arms? Like I don't want to start too late because then like, you have to actually keep using your hands so they don't like
build
just
up
atrophy. Yeah, and you have to, but also you don't want to use them too early, otherwise you could increase the injury. So I need to go to these museum owners and be like, since you have perfect knowledge, when is the right time to act? Like, there is other circumstances. There is a virus right now, so it is difficult for me to even go to doctors. But, and money is an issue. There's all this extraneous stuff going around, swirling around. I'm trying to do the best I can, but life contains thousands of problems. And I don't even have to run a country or help run a country. But you, even with all of that, you know the perfect time to act. So please tell me, when do we act?
Yeah.
Like, because they know.
Maybe they only know past stuff.
Well,
what if you had omniscience of the past only?
You would be really annoying, because that's just someone who's, like, with hindsight, who never offers anything useful, and they just say, you didn't do good. Like, did you end slavery, museum? No, I didn't think so. Go to Qatar, right now. End slavery. Now's the time. Or maybe it's not. Maybe they know.
Yeah.
Maybe they were ending. Actually, Qatar, I think they abolished that in 2018, technically.
I think the UK has to deal with its own slavery right now, but...
Slavery's illegal in the UK.
Still going on, illegally, and a lot of it.
I don't know enough about that to
comment.
I
don't know enough either. It's just... I should hold my tongue.
Just throw out baseless...
Yeah, baseless claims.
Yes. No, so this is interesting, actually. Scott Adams has been talking about this a bit on his podcast, which... the word baseless...
Yes.
Like, your slavery thing is a baseless claim.
Yes.
That doesn't mean it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That just means you have not enough knowledge and no proof.
Yeah.
Which means it could very well be wrong. But it isn't actually a way to dismiss something. Mm-hmm. Like, if something's, like, certifiably false, that is different from being baseless.
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of an interesting word thing.
Okay, so, do you know about the Queen's Gambit? On Netflix. The TV show about chess. Apparently it's really popular.
Vaguely.
Okay, it's called Something Interesting to Happen.
Okay.
So, do you remember, what was it called? The book with Bow Lady, and she, like, went and fought in a children's tournament and, like, killed other children with her bow. And,
Hunger Games?
Yeah, Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds really dark when you describe it like that.
It is dark.
Yeah, anyways.
It's incredibly dark. Did you not read the Hunger Games?
No, I didn't. I only watched the movies. And they're all really dark too.
Yeah, it's a very dark series.
Anyways, you know how archery became a lot more popular among women and in general, but...
Yeah.
Like in our archery club, a lot more women start signing up.
Yeah.
So women in chess clubs,
Yeah.
the numbers have started going up, and there's a lot more women playing chess now
Wow.
because of the Queen's Gambit. And I read this interesting article, which I thought was quite funny, which was that this is basically it's like stopping it being a male-dominated sport, and it's going like women are going to start like playing professionally at the top, and there's going to be like more pro-women in chess. And when I thought that was funny, I just remembered the story about that woman who plays in like just normal chess leagues. And it's like, why don't you play in the women's leagues? And she'd like be the best in the women's leagues. It's like, because it's not a sport where we should have women's leagues.
Her name's Valentina something, I think.
Yeah.
That's interesting because like Valentina has been pushing for women joining chess for decades.
Yeah.
I think that's her name. The top female grandmaster. I think her name's Valentina. And she's been pushing for this for a long time and saying that they should abolish women's leagues and just have unisex leagues because she thinks women can compete equally with men, and it's silly to have the division.
Yeah.
The only thing it does is it creates one league where people think they might be able to relax a bit or not try as hard.
Yeah.
But she's been pushing for this for actual decades. And if this movie had come out, like...
Well, TV series, but
if this TV series had come out, like, 40 years ago, then it could have helped her cause so much back then. But instead, she's had to toil and suffer for the last, I don't know how many decades. Yeah. I don't even know if she's still alive, but...
I just thought it's funny how it's like...
So the creators of the show should be condemned for not acting soon enough in making The Queen's Gambit. Because think about the decades of women who were suffering... like anyone else who stopped women from entering chess or women who weren't entering chess themselves, they get a free pass. But the creators of the show who have created a change should be punished for not making it 40 years ago. I am sickened by this, and I think that they should have all their money taken from them.
You are listening to The Fool and the Philosopher.
It's very weird, actually, because we're talking about chess being something that women can do without being made fun of.
Yeah.
The idea that anyone could be a chess player without being made fun of is, like, new this year, I think. Like, unless you're a Russian grandmaster, like, you're just some, like...
Or Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, you're just some pathetic dweeb playing chess. Like the idea... Board games have become very popular in the last couple of years as well. And board games are still just starting off, but they've become much more popular. Video games, I think, starting like 2012, maybe 2007, let's say, somewhere in there, started becoming mainstream. Movies, like Marvel's fans and stuff, that's a mainstream thing to be a fan of Marvel, to be a fan of Disney.
Yeah.
Like, you're a huge fan of Disney? You're a dumb baby who's like likes baby stuff. Like, that's... I'm not saying that's what you are. That's like you love kids shows, like some sort of child, like role play. You're just playing you're just doing imaginary things.
So I don't know if it's like always the case, but I think anyways now people actually really don't care.
I think they still do because
I'm gonna get rid of the rest of the notes.
I don't know. Let's see how much further you can dig, but.
So well, it's more just ideas, like it's not opinions I hold.
So I think that what you have is you have obsessive men who do something that they find fun and are ostracized from society for doing so.
Yeah.
And then what happens is they are followed by the majority of men and a minority of women. And then it's male culture. And then it's followed by the majority of women. And then it's mainstream.
And then men go, that's icky. I'm not going to wear high heels and tights anymore.
And yeah, and then they...
It's women culture.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think if you look at video games, role-playing, high heels, tights... Wigs.
Makeup.
Actually, makeup might be a women thing first. I'm not sure on that one. Because you go back to, like, the Egyptians and the Egyptian women. So makeup, I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
But, and also like high heels, I don't know about tight pants. Like that's probably actually technological advancement because it's actually kind of hard to make stretchy fabric. But high heels, I think, have kind of gone back and forth throughout history. But I think there could be. The thing is, whatever you see is all you know about. Yeah. So I don't think that, provided this hypothesis is correct, that women are going, oh, hey, a lot of men do this now, so I want to do it. I don't think that's what's happening.
No, I don't think that's what's happening.
I think it's just permeating out into society. And so there is probably something like a reverse effect of...
social ostracization? Or?
No, like the majority of women liking something and then men slowly like taking it on and then women moving to the next thing. Pink, I guess, is becoming much more popular with men. Yeah. But that was something that...
Well, there's What's-His-Face and other What's-His-Face. Those two major makeup sellers that are both guys that were obscene amounts of makeup.
Like James Charles.
James Charles and the guy who's really creepy with all the tattoos on that guy. I'm sorry, but he looks creepy. He's way too skinny. And it's like got long white hair. He looks like a villain from... Well, anything. Like he looks like a villain.
All right. Anyways, pink. That was a male color until the 1920s, I think. Yeah. So it just kind of had a 100-year blip. Yeah. But I think that could be what we're seeing with chess, and we like which men or women. Are more men gamers or more women gamers? More women are gamers.
Sorry, your statement actually made absolutely no coherent sense under the rules of English. Could you please try again?
I heard this great sentence, right? So I like talking about Russia and whatnot, but I don't feel like I'm very qualified to talk about Russia because more people have been to Russia than me.
No!
Just break your brain on that one.
It's like on the radio, I heard this woman saying, I don't remember how she said it, but it's like, when I first met him, he didn't speak English very good. Yeah. However, she said it in like 3 words, and they're all detached, like she's trying to put together her head. It's like, well, apparently you don't speak English very good either now.
But, yeah. There are more women gamers than men gamers. How about that?
Yes, there we go. That statement actually works now.
Yeah. And Disney fans, I don't know. Marvel fans, I don't know. But I think at one point, like in the 80s, nobody would have believed that. Yeah. There was like 1,000 university students that were like 99% male. So there's different areas though. Chess is now like women are joining more chess. Yeah. Archery, there's a lot more women in archery. But tabletop war games, I think women are very rare in that.
So we have to make a movie about tabletop war games.
About a woman who's really good at tabletop war games.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also have it be immensely popular.
So the Queen's Gambit, right? I haven't actually seen it. But Netflix's little trailer thing shows her registering for a chess game. Yeah. And the one guy is just sort of like, are you sure you want to be in this tournament? And it's like, okay, he's just like, you're unranked. Why are you joining a ranked tournament? But the other guy is being a little dismissive of her for being a woman. Yeah. And she's acting very confident, like, no, I can do this. I know what I'm doing, sort of thing. Yeah. She is unranked, so it's a little weird that she thinks she can do well. Like, she has no experience, in theory, unless she's been beating Grandmasters secretly and not taking a rank. Have you seen Woo Assassins on Netflix?
No.
Their trailer is like this woman going up to a dinner table where there's these two, like the two main characters, I assume, eating. They're both Chinese Americans.
I don't know. I have seen Woo Assassin. I haven't seen the trailer though.
Okay,
I think I've seen Woo Assassin.
They're both Chinese Americans. Yeah. And she said, and they're eating breakfast or whatever. And she comes up to them and says, "Would you like anything else? We can do some Asian rice and chicken, or we can do some whatever and whatever." And the guy's like, "Where do you think you're from?" Well, she's like, "Well, obviously you're not from around here." It's like, "What, you mean Georgia?" She's like, "No, the United States." And then he launches into this actually kind of interesting history lesson about Chinese immigration into the United States.
Yeah.
But it's a little
On the nose?
it's like there's a TV tropes has this thing called anvilicious, where an author will set up a scene just to hit you over the head with an anvil. And like it's an interesting history lesson. And they do it quite well because he basically like tells her off like, and so we have been us and our family have been American citizens since the 1930s, even though we had to fight for recognition, which we didn't get until the 1970s after every other group of people got. And then she's just like, oh, but she seemed like quite sweet. She was just trying to like, you know, and then chases her off basically. And then the other guy's like, what? Just kind of looks at him like, what? And then the guy's like, oh, sorry, did you want the Chinese chicken, the Asian chicken? And it's kind of funny, but it's all. Are people not tired of? This is kind of weird. Watching others stand up to bullies in like really overdone ways. It's like the authors are like able to.
Well, Cameron, see, the thing is,
you know,
most writers, right?
Yeah.
Are still pathetic dweebs that got bullied, and so they still want their vengeance.
Well, I think in this case, it's not even a pathetic dweeb. It seems like someone that experienced racism potentially. Yeah. But it's like, you know, French, Spirit of the Stairs, where you think of a comeback after you leave.
Yeah.
It's like, is Netflix trailers the place where writers can pour out like their little revenges against, like, there was some like chess player who was like, oh, I'll show you. Like, I am so sick of that sort of thing because they do it so poorly. Like, the people are so blatantly evil. Like in Umbrella Academy, that diner full of what I assume is the concentration of the most evil Nazis on Earth. Like,
oh yeah,
like that was really weird.
Get out!
Like, the United States during the Civil War was strongly divided in opinion on black people, and there was like the North was like they are just normal people, and the South was like the South itself was divided. Like they're slaves if they're slaves, but they're free if they're free, or they're all bad, or you know, it's just we have to do this because of the economy. Like it was a complicated idea in the South. In the North, it was like they're just people basically. And then all of a sudden in the 60s, there's a diner where every single person in it is horrible beyond belief. And it's so ham-fisted. And I am sick of it. Like, I don't think that the ideas are bad and that you can't put them in shows. Like, it's interesting she joins a resistance movement with the knowledge of the future in the past. Like, that's it. Like, this is... She knows all the stuff that worked and all the stuff that didn't. And you could do that, but... And they do go into a little bit of nuance where she, like, boils the guy's hand, and it's like...
And her husband's the only reasonable person on the face of the planet.
Her husband is like, look, we do this non-violently, and they have to respect us for it. And it's like, yeah, this guy... Like, so they do have a bit of nuance there.
No, her husband's the only good person in that TV show.
But, yeah, basically. But he's, like, weirdly jealous of her brothers. He's like, who are all these brothers? But to be fair, it does look a little suspicious.
Yes.
But I'm kind of like, I don't know, it's everywhere. And it's a little tiring. Like,
well, even so.
And it's also arguing stuff like, you know what, Connor? Samaritans, they're not awful people. Like, I know everyone hates the Samaritans and they think Samaritans are good for nothing, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the Samaritans, even if just one of them is a good man, right? Then the Samaritans have something worth redeeming in them. Like, that is... Some of these ideas are like, they're dying or dead, and they just keep getting brought up.
So, the back to the thing with the Wu Assassin, right?
Yeah.
I think EGS did a much better version of that. Where Elliot's asking that girl, I can't remember her name, but he's basically asking someone whose like families were Asian, like, where do you want to eat at the mall? And he's recommending a bunch of different places. And he's like going like, we could have like Korean, we could have Chinese, we could have Japanese, and just thinking his head's like, oh god, he's trying to impress me by bringing me to an Asian restaurant. I've never been to Asia, I was born in New York, and then she just like screams that. And as she screams that, he's like, or we can go get pizza. And he's just recommending food that he likes because
Yeah.
he's just an adorable dork who's just like, oh, that's Asian food's good.
Yeah, something like that's a good way to do it, I think. And I did say, like, these ideas are dead. That's not entirely true. And I don't know to what extent it is or not, because what you see depends from person to person.
Yeah.
And there is... I will say this, though. I never thought there was a difference between any race until it started getting hammered into my head by the schools, basically, like high school, basically. Like, it's like you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, and then they like put an arm around you and they're like, hey, you, yeah? What's it? You see that black guy over there? Yeah? He's not stupid like you think he is.
What?
It's like, what did you just say about my friend?
Yeah.
Like, how dare you? Like, that is basically how a lot of the stuff feels to me. And it makes me kind of like, this didn't exist in my life until you came along and started calling, like, people I know, friends, like, or just people I see that I never had any assumptions about.
Yeah.
Like, this or that, and it's like... And there's new ones that have, like, I think Family Guy, they kind of walk a fine line, and...
They
like,
know it.
I think, like, their heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
But I think they've done more for keeping stereotypes alive than, like, they do stuff and you're like, that's a stereotype of that group of people? Like,
yeah.
It's like, what, Italians beat their wives? That's a stereotype?
The one I like is she prepares for battle by taking off all her rings.
Yeah,
It's like I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, I don't think it is. Like, I think...
Well, I didn't know that was a stereotype. It's like...
Yeah. It's, they are, What, it's like they're creating the issue that they're trying to solve.
Yeah, well...
In Family Guy's case, I don't think they're actually trying to fix anything. I think they're just being irreverent and be funny.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. It's the ones that say they have, like, a moral message or a moral duty to do something. Like, we have this book in our house. I've never read it, but I've read the back of it. And
it's called It's Okay to Be Racist. Wait, no.
It has a name something like that, but it's, like, not. But it's like... It's basically this massive list of stereotypes on the back. Another thing...
It's saying that they're all wrong, but gives you all the stereotypes so you can look for them.
So something that's slightly invaded universities is implicit bias tests.
Yeah.
And they're not... Last time I looked into them, which was 5 years ago, so things might have changed. But they're not, like, psychologically valid.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. Their testing methodology was a little poor. Like, they only tested them in one direction.
What are these bias tests again?
So what you do, you can find them online, is it'll show a picture of a person.
Yeah.
And then it will show... Oh, how does this work? A word.
Yeah.
And it will say... Okay, so... Here's a picture, and it'll be like... It won't be celebrities. It'll be like just random people.
Yeah.
I'm like, bam, here's a person. And then here's a word, and the word will be like good, kind, dangerous, angry, thief, hero, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so what you have to do is you have to say, you hit left and right on the keyboard. And now I could be getting this slightly wrong, but I think what you do is person's face goes up.
Yeah.
And it'll be black or white person, basically.
Yeah.
And so then you will have to press left if they're black, right if they're white, or something like that.
Yeah.
And they'll come up at random if it's a word or a person.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like, all right, and now here's the bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so it's like a gun, a picture of a gun. They also have pictures of like guns or something. It'll be like violent, or it'll be a picture of like a flower. And it'll be like, okay, if it's bad, press left. If it's good, press right. And so then you go like, and then what they do is halfway through the test, they swap everything. So what your first results don't matter.
Yeah.
But then they switch everything around so that now, so what they did in the first one is, let's say, associate bad with black and good with white.
Yeah.
In the second test, they switch it. So now good is associated with black and bad is associated with white.
Yeah.
And then they get you to do the same test. And what they do is they check the difference in your response time between the first test and the second test. So it's like, well, you were able to associate black people with violence in 0.5 seconds, but you took 1 second to associate white people with violence or something like that. And that's basically how that test works. So one of my concerns with that, one of my key issues with that is you would have to test a lot of people with this test, and you'd have to give them different starting states in order, because you are not only building an association for...
You're building associated with just left and right. And when you switch that, that's confusing.
So you are naturally slower the second time round. And also...
Like video game QuickTime events, I know you hate them, but the challenge in QuickTime events, they'll go like A. Oh, now you have to press B. Oh, now we're back to A. And that's like how they trip people up.
So that's the one thing, is it trips you up the second time round. And so it's going to be harder. But in theory, it shouldn't matter if it's harder. It should be the difference between how hard it is for one compared to the other. Like if you find it easier for one or the other. But I don't think you can say necessarily that racism is what you are testing, even if there's something there. Because it might be easier to associate hammers with left and flowers with right for some reason.
Yeah.
Don't know what it is, but it might exist. So you cannot say that you are discovering racism. Now, even if you discover implicit racism, which would... And they said they found it high, like the one person that was working on it said, like, she got an incredibly high score and she prides herself in not being racist in her day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And the interviewer got a fairly low score, and he said he also like feels like he treats people fairly equally, which means what the person said had no bearing on their test, which means it doesn't really look like you're... Like, could you get a white supremacist in and like a... I don't know, like some sort of like Malcolm X type in and like get them to do the test and see if they... Like, what if they just get like dead even? They're like... Maybe it's not testing that at all. And the other thing is, let's say that the test does detect racism. Yeah. Like an implicit, subconscious, uncontrollable racism. Yeah. Well, then so what?
It's subconscious, uncontrollable.
They can't do anything about it. But let's say it's due to societal raising. Yeah. But it somehow works its way into your subconscious because of the society you live in. And now you can't change it no matter what you want. Yeah. So you're stuck with this, but if society changed, then you wouldn't be stuck with this. Yeah. So your first response, deep down, subconsciously, even if you can barely hear it or can't hear it at all, is this race is like that. And you're just like, I don't think that... I have this sort of mantra, I guess, which is first thoughts don't count. Yeah. And I don't think that even if that's your first thought, if that doesn't affect your life in any way, except for a little like little twitch moment, sort of like, then that's that. Another...
Isn't that even called like your lizard brain or something like that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there's sort of like your first thought sort of idea. Yeah.
Never liked the term lizard brain.
So I read this thing on stereotypes at one point. Yeah. And it was talking about how it was in the same vein of like implicit racism tests or implicit bias tests, where I feel like if they went away, the world would be a better place. But this guy was saying stereotypes. He said, okay, so you think stereotypes are gone, but they're not. So you have something like black people are, this is the example he used, lazy and unskilled. Yeah. And then he said, okay, but what about all those black police officers, black president, black teachers, lawyers that you see? He's like, and if you talk to someone who stereotypes, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know. Yeah, let's see those guys. It's like, well, how does that work? Surely the stereotype's dead. And he's like, no, it's not. It's fractured. Now there's the idea of the professional black man and the unprofessional black man. And I think Jordan Peterson talked about this idea before. Once you subcategorize people like 6 or 7 times, they're an individual. Yeah. Like, it's like they're desperate to find the stereotypes or something.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a person.
That said, we are not discussing eye color stereotypes for some reason.
Yeah.
Hair color does come up with like the blonde jokes and stuff and the
Yeah.
redheads, but it's lesser and nobody takes offense at it.
Why is there no jokes about brown or
Because it's
black
common.
hair? Oh, really?
Probably.
Hmm.
I mean, same thing that why they'd say white skin in America, probably, or because it's the default.
Hmm.
Well, that's another thing, actually. Just going default is there's the idea.
Oh, it's just you're saying deep. I know you're going to talk about that could be considered quite racist. What you just said.
What?
The default color of America is white.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to say.
Yeah.
Is that the idea of a default thing? Like the most common one you see in language is male is default.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people offended that will use words for groups of people as men, like especially in Latin languages.
Yeah.
So you'll say like Latino, and that's why Latinx is becoming a thing, because you're not then saying a group of men.
Wait, is that literally why there's Latinx?
Yeah, because
I just thought it was some weird piece of insanity that they
No.
just wanted to use a new word.
so how Spanish works, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a group of Latin Americans, you would call them Latinos,
Yeah.
unless they were all women, and then you could call them Latinas. But if there's one man in that group, then they're Latinos. So if you use female, it means all female. If you use man, it means men and women. English is similar, but to a much lesser extent.
Yeah.
We'll say guys, firemen, policemen. Like,
Dudes.
like we don't use firemen and policemen as much anymore. Mailmen, handyman. We don't use those sort of words as much anymore. But they are assumed human,
Yeah.
mankind. Those are all assumed to include both men and women.
Yeah.
And so they've changed now to firefighter, mail carrier, that sort of thing, police officer. And that was due to it being called sexist against women because it's man in there.
Yeah.
An argument could have very easily been made in the opposite direction of this is sexist to men because it treats them as generic and as a default. And so I think it's kind of funny that anyone could get offended. Like anyone has the right to get offended in a way.
Yeah.
But I guess this time around women got there first, maybe. Maybe not. Like I could see offended men being like the secret motivators behind the change. Like just kind of like, yes, do my bidding, yes.
That's a weird take on the patriarchy being the evil cabal.
They're manipulating women into not discriminating against men by using their control. Yeah, I don't know where that's go. So anyways, with this also leads into the eye color thing.
Yeah.
That tends not to be a discriminated thing.
Yeah.
With the Nazis, you had blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah.
There might be a few others that I can't really think of.
Green-eyed Asians was considered almost impossible. And so if a Chinese person was green-eyed, then they were considered incredibly beautiful because they had a genetic that basically shouldn't show up.
Didn't know about that.
Yeah. So like there's it's not much of a thing anymore because of course like Chinese people have gotten spread out through the world and like marry people from other things and have kids, so you can have people who look Chinese with green eyes. But originally it was like, whoa, she's Chinese and has green eyes, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, light hair in Japan is still like pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really. It's funny because their media a lot of the time doesn't seem to suggest it, but
I very much suggest that. Yeah, that's why everyone has odd hair.
I guess, but it's like Japan like must have like the darkest hair, like the most consistent hair color on earth or something. Like it's just all black except for the people that dye it.
Yeah, there's a few like lighter browns, and then there's gray when they get old. But
Yeah.
even then, actually, most older people in Japan's hair stays dark.
But I like when I was in Japan, I was getting stared at. Like there was a school trip that stopped following their teacher because to stop and stare at me.
Yeah.
Like their teacher walked off and they just stopped on the top of this like castle. They're visiting a castle in like I think it was Kyoto possibly.
Yeah.
Like the old like their ancient capital.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me.
Stupid blonde tourists
They're just like,
disturbing the guide.
is this Hermes? Descended from Olympus to grace us on this day?
The hilarious one for us when we did the trip with the group of people before, there's a girl in our group, and I think she was a little shorter than our dad.
Yeah.
Like maybe like 2 inches or something short.
Right, so like 6 feet tall or something.
Yeah, or more. Like she was huge, like just in height. She's incredibly tall. And so when we went to a school, the boys there were like, what? And like looking up at her, and they would like sneak up behind her and stand on their tiptoes trying to see how high they came up to her, and like would measure each other. Like, that's the other thing. All the students are like incredibly quiet, like in their movement. They all have like slippers and can move quite quietly. So she wouldn't notice these Japanese boys sneak up behind her and then standing back to back with her and like doing this and then checking their height against her. And she's just at a certain point, she's just like, what's going on?
I think Japan might have one of the biggest monocultures on Earth, which makes them kind of fun for outsiders. But
well, I mean, yeah. When I was in the school, I went outside and looked out the window. I was like, look on the balcony, like leaning there.
Yeah.
And I later found out that a bunch of the girls there were imitating me and giggling and taking pictures of me. And later on, I found out that one of the possible causes of that is apparently there's a quite popular manga for girls where there was a guy who would like go out by himself and like stand on the balcony and look out over it solemnly. I was just like, it's really warm in the school. I need to go outside because it's cooler. But
they've got anything slightly out of the ordinary seems very weird to them, I think.
Yeah.
Because their society is so uniform.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so beyond the green-eyed Asian then and the blue-eyed Nazis, then I don't think it's that common.
Yeah.
So when we talk about racial stereotypes and racism being an issue and skin color, I guess, kind of as a secondary thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just even on that, like comparing us, I'm way darker than you.
No.
And we're brothers.
Yeah.
And I've been mistaken for being native from around here by my skin color.
Yeah. Well, especially our aunt, actually. Like, she looks super dark-skinned.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not super, but like for being a German.
Yeah. Well, our dad's even, like, he's just quite tanned. Like, he's tanned so much that it's permanently tanned his skin.
Yeah. But anyway, where I'm going with the eye color thing is that never became a thing.
Yeah.
But racial stereotypes did.
Yeah.
So I can't just dismiss them outright.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I don't mean I can't say that they're not right. What I mean is I can say that the people that are creating these problems are the ones that keep talking about racial stereotypes.
Yeah.
But they didn't invent the stereotypes because for some reason they appeared in society.
Yeah.
I think just the most obvious thing that I can think of, and this isn't based on anything,
Is dumb blondes.
is disease. So if someone looks different from you, they can probably kill you by touching you. That's like a fairly safe assumption to make, I think, from a societal, like a tribal society sort of perspective.
Yeah.
Because, look, the Sentinelese, right?
Yeah.
They killed the one guy that visited them for the first time in like 10,000 years or something.
Yeah.
They probably are one of the few societies on Earth right now that aren't dealing with coronavirus. Like, I think there is something to killing outsiders. Like, there's a reason people are predisposed towards hating people that are different from them.
Yeah.
It's so society functions.
Well, there's the
and
purple monkey experiment, which is if you take a monkey from a group of monkeys. This experiment was done once, and then they didn't do it again. Or it might have done twice. Anyways, you paint the monkey purple, you put it back in the group, they murder it. Because it looks different now. It's a purple monkey. He's not a part of the group anymore. Kill him.
Yeah, he's... Huh. Yeah, I think... Although I think with people, that wouldn't happen. Because looks are our go-to. But I think that we also have something of integration.
Yeah.
And so I think how people work... Because society is... I'll say unassailable. Society is unassailable as long as it's uniform.
Yeah.
But it means, like in Japan, when something slightly out of the ordinary somehow invades your society.
Yeah.
So it isn't actually unassailable, because nothing is unassailable. It might feel like it. You can collapse, like you don't know how to respond to it. And I think Japan is having that issue right now with their NEETs, whatever they're called. They're not employed, not seeking employment, people in their 30s.
Yeah.
Because they see Western culture like of individualism.
Yeah.
And it does not work within their society.
Yeah.
And you have, like, there's Chinese families in Canada, especially, that I know of, that they can keep their collectivist culture in Canada because Canada is much more resilient. And China is much more resilient of cultures.
Yeah.
Intermingling and taking the best parts from each other and passing back and forth. Whereas Japan isn't. And so I think it's like breaking them. I think that, you know, like...
Well, Japan had like its technological change, its government change. They're like experiencing now its cultural one, basically.
Yeah, I think so. You don't see change without chaos.
Yeah.
And so I think that this will... they'll come out the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But it's rough, and they're less resilient now.
Yeah.
And I think that's also the same thing with, like, the Sentinelese, right?
Yeah.
The common cold might kill them.
Yeah.
Whereas anyone else on Earth, basically, it wouldn't, because...
Also, though, like, do they have something that would knock us down?
It would be less likely, because they're not living as dense together all around the world.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, basically anything we have is dangerous to them.
There's a chance they do. Like, if you look at the colonization of the Americas, you had a huge, like, smallpox, and it goes on.
Smallpox is one of the big ones.
You had a lot of diseases, though.
Smallpox, syphilis?
No,
that came from?
Yes. Yeah. So anyways, there's a bunch of diseases that came from the old world.
Yellow fever?
But there was actually diseases that did come from the new world, but there was a lot less of them.
Yeah.
Which is what I was getting at with that, is just... so the Sentinelese might have something, but they're in a lot more danger from us than we are from them. Because our immune systems have had so much more of a broad workout, basically.
What was it? War of the Worlds, you know how, like, a microbe takes out, like, the aliens get taken out by, like, a microbe?
Yeah.
I feel like you could add something to the War of the Worlds, which is just like another alien spaceship shows them. They come down in a hazmat suit. All the humans are dead and all the aliens are dead because, like, they coughed on each other. So we got, like, the disease from Mars, and they got whatever we had.
And I think,
like, that's actually one thing I remember was this basically talking about the idea of eating aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, like, there was this theory for a long time, like, we couldn't at all. And this other guy's like, oh, they'd probably be slightly poisonous to us, but we could probably adapt to it really quickly and just give us indigestion. The main thing we have to worry about is the diseases they have that they'd give us and what we'd give them. It's basically, like, talked about super alien diseases that neither of us have, like, anything, because, like, this thing's insane.
Yeah, no, that'd be a big issue, would be the whole first contact thing of,
But it's funny, it's like, yeah, we could probably eat each other. The thing we have to worry about is, like, what diseases and bacteria we have.
The other big issue is whoever visits the other first. Like, even if our diseases are equally deadly to each other, the aliens lose their ship, we lose our planet.
Yeah.
So that'd be bad. So maybe there is, you know...
Maybe, like, the whole plague ship thing of, like, staying out of harbor. Like, if we see an alien spaceship, maybe we should, like, say, stay back, stay back.
Maybe humans are doing it wrong, though. Like, we are not, like, we get very lonely and cooped up during a pandemic, obviously.
Yeah.
So we're obviously not good at them, which means that humans aren't adapted to the amount of people we have.
Mm-hmm.
Because pandemics don't happen when you have less people.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, to become a space-traveling civilization, you either have to come up with start figuring out cures incredibly fast and basically have a cure for anything.
Yeah.
Or not be as dense.
Have really big empty spaceships with, like...
No, just, like, your society's just a lot less... Like, if we had, like...
for being dense.
If we had, like, 1/10 the people on Earth or something.
Well, even population centers and... I mean, we do... What is it? Cities aren't healthy for people.
Yeah.
It's, like, being shown that people actually hate cities.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we don't seem to be adapted to the world we live in. So I think that we are doing something wrong.
But I don't think we even need to be in the cities. Like, I think there's enough space for people spread out from them to extend.
I don't think there is.
No?
No. For instance, there's a website you can go to called What's My Footprint?
Yeah.
And you put in your lifestyle and the amount of property you have and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they tell you how many planets you have to sustain that lifestyle. And even the low end of people that we were looking at, I don't know what assumptions it's making entirely. It shows some of them. But, it was like 2 to 6 planets for like everyone living like you do sort of thing.
Huh.
There is have you ever looked at a map of the United States? Like half of its population in cities and half of it outside of cities.
Yeah.
And like it's like 2% of their land is like half the population.
When I was looking at the election map and like the amount of points each place is worth, I was like, why on earth is this place worth 52 points? And like the next closest was Texas or something. I can't remember which state's worth the most, but like the next closest is Texas. And Texas was worth, I think, like 16 less points in like college seats.
And if you look at...
And is the East Coast city. I can't remember what it's called, but they just have such a high population. And it's like, whoa.
If you look at like a place like Chongqing,
Yeah.
that is like a mega city that just doesn't stop.
Well, do you remember being in the tower?
In Tokyo, yeah. In the Sky Tree.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, you would need something like that for people to be spread out. Like, people are stacked up so high.
What was that weird thing?
Even if you halved the height of all the skyscrapers, like, think about how much land you're taking up then. Like,
in Psyche, where they're like in London, and it's like London's the size of one of the prefixes of...
Yeah, their biggest, their 12th district or whatever.
Yeah.
Their biggest district. Yeah, but Chongqing's the biggest city on Earth, and it's like just...
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this before. Remember?
Right.
How you were like, Tokyo's the biggest, and I was like, no, it's not. It's Chongqing, and then Tokyo...
Has the most land?
No, Chongqing does.
Oh, but Tokyo has the biggest population. Let's see. Or is it Chongqing?
Chongqing does as well, I think.
Okay.
But Chongqing is a province, whereas Tokyo is a city.
Right.
But Chongqing is also a city, so it's like it has a weird sort of nomenclature thing. So I gotta go soon.
Yes.
So I want to because it's relevant to the idea of like the implicit racism.
Yeah.
So if someone like deep in their heart has some sort of like bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. But they don't act on it. So my question kind of is, say there's the next Canadian election, right? Mm. Peter Wiggin is running for Prime Minister.
Right.
Would you vote for him?
Yes.
Made that pretty quick.
It's because he can get stuff done, and he's very, very efficient. Even if he's an awful person, he can pretend to be good.
So Peter Wiggin doesn't not only not care about people, he kind of hates people.
Yeah.
He'd murder people happily. Actually, he enjoys causing pain on others.
Yeah.
He enjoys torturing animals.
Yeah.
He hates everyone, basically.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a lot of people that say, like, I'm not racist, I hate everyone equally.
Yeah.
Isn't that worse?
In some ways, yes.
Like, racism is bad because of undeserved hatred towards some people, right? So isn't, like, what do you call it, anthrophobia or something? Like, isn't hatred towards all people...
Yeah. Just raw odium?
Just even worse?
Yeah.
Like, you're just an awful person. You don't give anyone a chance.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like an excuse to me. That seems like you're saying, oh, I'm not a bad person. I'm a horrible person.
But see, why I vote for Peter Wiggin is he can pretend to be a good person, and he does good things for the people he leads.
Yeah, and so I was kind of thinking, like, do you care about your leader as long as they get things done? Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is different for different people.
Yeah.
Because someone like Obama, let's say.
Yeah.
He seems like he's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
And like the stuff I've seen of him after his presidency, even, he seems like he'd be pretty fun to hang out with, and he seems like he's a decent guy. His government, they drone striked a lot of people. Now that's not necessarily his fault or his choice.
Yeah.
But it was happening under his watch. That doesn't take away from the fact that he's even a good person, potentially.
Yeah.
But he wasn't able to stop it if he wanted to, or he was allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas Peter would either be able to stop it, or he would want it to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that... so where am I going with that? Like, so you have a choice between Obama and Peter Wiggin, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I don't think it would be like an obvious choice, like for a society. For each person, I think it'd be fairly obvious.
Yeah.
But I have heard, like, our mom has said about world leaders before. I said, like, well, they did this and this and this.
Yeah.
And our mom said, yeah, but they really don't represent their country well.
Yeah.
Like, the other world leaders look at them, they look down at them, or they just, everyone thinks they're crazy or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they are, so someone like Peter Wiggin, he would make your country look kind of bad. Yeah. Like, in a way. Like, well, he makes your country look amazing. Like, your economy would soar, it'd probably have the highest peace levels ever, crime would plummet. Yeah. This guy is, like, the smartest person ever, besides Bean, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bean's probably smarter.
Yeah.
Bean's definitely smarter. In the Ender's Game series.
Yeah.
So second smartest person in human history, basically.
Yeah.
But the problem with him is that he is
awful.
Absolutely awful. So people would be like, you have a animal torturer as your leader.
Yeah.
You have a dictator as your leader. Because he would take control.
Yes.
Like, he would not give up power, ever.
Yeah.
But
he'd be like Veterinari, almost.
Yeah. Well, him and Veterinari, like, would you vote for Veterinari?
Actually, maybe I would actually vote for Veterinari, because crime went down under Veterinari.
Yeah. But he didn't eliminate it.
No.
Peter Wiggin might eliminate crime. I mean, you're not voting between those two.
Yeah.
If you have to choose between those two, I think Peter Wiggin's the obvious choice.
Yes.
It's like, do you vote for the assassin or the animal torturer? Who's more effective?
Yeah.
The unkillable assassin or the super effective animal torturer?
Psychopath.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was just thinking about that idea of, like, are you voting for their personality or for their effectiveness?
Yeah.
Like, do you care about their policy or do you care about their...
I myself care what they can get done.
But the other thing is, you look at the two options, right? Yeah. You're like, okay, Peter Wiggins has an amazing policy. He promises to do all these things. But the way people work, and it's not without reason, is I don't trust him to deliver on this.
Yeah.
Because
that guy has such kind eyes.
Yeah. And so I can trust him to deliver on his promises.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where it comes from. Is like Peter Wiggins, we know from Shadow of the Hedgehog that he would deliver.
Yep.
And he also wouldn't get to the point where you'd actually know enough about him before he started running for office. Like, but this is assuming you know about his past.
Yeah.
You're like Ender, who's like the only person that really knows about his past. Because I think
Bean.
I don't think Bean knows.
Oh, Bean knew everything.
Did he?
Yeah. Shadow of the Hedgehog. Bean hates.
Does he learn it from Ender, or
Bean figures it out?
Like, because he never slips or anything, so I don't know.
He talks to other people. He talks to Bean's sister.
I don't know if Valentine ever knew about Peter's stuff as much.
He talks to the parents. Like, Bean can figure stuff out.
Yeah. Like, Ender knew, obviously. Yeah. And Peter, I guess the military knew.
Yeah. So
Bean has access to the military.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Bean had access to everything.
Yeah. But Bean's high up in the military, so they'd tell him as well.
Yeah.
But so I think that's the problem with people like Peter, where you see that you would vote for the policy, but you can't trust the person to deliver. Yeah. Whereas the person with the weaker policy, you're like, yeah, they can deliver. But the thing is, we're pretty bad judges at people from afar.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is about politicians and people is I think that if we see someone even through a screen, we're their friend. I think that's why Twitch is so effective, because you're hanging out with your friends. Like, I have found, actually, if I'm, like, because I'm kind of going stir crazy for stuff to do. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I need something to do. I could watch Netflix, and I don't want to. And then I'll go onto YouTube and I'll watch some stuff. Yeah. And it's like, what's the difference between watching Netflix and YouTube? And the best I can think of is YouTube is hanging out with your friends. Mm. They're not your friends. Yeah. But that's the feeling. Like, through a screen, that's all it takes to form a connection. And I think that it's the same thing with politicians. You're like, I know this guy. He's a reasonable dude. But then, like, something comes out and you're like, they did what? And they did what? And And so your judgment is worthless on someone that's so far away.
Yeah.
Like, if you met Obama and Peter Wiggins in person, then you could make a much more informed decision. In which case, well, Peter would be weird because he'd be nice, but you'd be like almost more freaked out if you knew about his past. You'd be like, why is he being so friendly?
But yes, we have things to do, so
Yeah.
we'll leave it there.